What's up? Welcome in to the CHGO Bears Podcast, presented by PointsBet. Use code CHGO when you sign up to get 2 risk-free bets up to $2,000. What's going on, Bears fans? Adam Hoge alongside Nicholas Moreano on an off day that brings Herb Howard into the studio here in the West Loop. What's going on, Herb?
I'm feeling good. A seemingly rare off day these days, but it's good. Glad to be here hanging out with y'all. For real, appreciate y'all having me.
This is how off days go. We're still working. We're still talking Bears.
Kind of how it is.
Yeah,
Got to. But it's good that we can bring in awesome guests like Herb when the Bears aren't practicing, so we can still break down everything that's been happening at Hallis Hall and at Bears training camp.
Herb covers the Bears for It's the Bigs, which you should be checking out at It's the Bigs. Of course, he's on Twitter at Herb Howard 411. Does a great job covering the team. Last time you were on, our viewers loved it, so it's good to have you back.
Hey, it was fun. We had a great conversation last time I was here. I love the studio too, man. Y'all got great digs here. It's a whole vibe, y'all. I know y'all don't get to experience the whole thing of CHGO, but it's a whole vibe. They got it going on up here, so it's nice to be back.
That's the one nice thing about coming in on the off days, is because during camp we've been in practice every day, so we've been doing it remotely. But to come back in studio, it's always good. Yeah. All right, well, let's jump in. Got a lot to talk about. I actually took the weekend off, and I came back, and it seems like every wide receiver got hurt over the last couple days. So I'm going to need you guys to update me a little bit on that situation. But, you know, look, we kind of knew going into the season in this training camp that it was going to be Darnell Mooney, and everyone kind of for grabs beyond that. So as long as it's not Darnell Mooney getting hurt, these injuries were going to happen, and it's just like, okay, it just shakes out the depth chart a little bit differently for right now. I mean, I don't know how any of these are that big of a deal is the point I'm making.
You know, Adam, I literally have that in my notes. At least it's not Mooney, right? All these other guys that have gotten injured, it's not the main one. So, I mean, the Bears have that going for them, but still, when you have Byron Pringle, who has the quad injury, Matty Reflus didn't give a timetable as to when he would return. N'Keal Harry with that serious high ankle injury. Velus Jones Jr.'s day-to-day. And then whatever's going on with Dante Pettis right now. So 4 wide receivers down, but at least still got Darnell Mooney right now.
It's not good. It's not good. I mean, I mentioned, I think I tweeted that, you know, the Bears wide receiver position had gone from, you know, bad to worse. And, you know, people get up in arms about things on Twitter. And I'm like, well, you don't think it's a bad thing? Like they have, first of all, this is the most bizarre wide receiver competition that I can recall, where you literally have a cluster of 4 or 5 guys who could be the number 2 wide receiver or not make the team. Like, that's kind of bananas, right? Just to think of it. And then to have 3 or 4 of those guys go down when you're learning a new system, trying to develop chemistry with Justin, trying to develop timing and chemistry with the other receivers, to have that many guys out right now it's not good. It's not good.
No, it's not, but, you know, like you said, it is a very odd competition, the way it's shaken out. You know, I don't think it's – first of all, losing N'Keal Harry, like, he was a bonus to even be here in the first place. They made that trade late. You know, that seems to be the more significant injury out of all of them. Yeah. Could be out sometime. It sounded like with what Ian Rappaport reported over the weekend, maybe at least 6 weeks. That would seem to put you into the regular season. And, you know, depending on how he was taking to the new offense anyway, because he got kind of a late start on all of this. He didn't have the OTAs in this system. I don't know. Maybe he's a guy that's not the worst thing in the world. You have to start the season, you know, out for a while as you pick up some things. Byron Pringle, that's a guy I think they want to be the number 2. Whether or not he performs up to that, it still is to be determined. I think the downside there with this quad injury is you just don't have him in the preseason game, so you don't really get to evaluate him in that setting.
Yeah, and I think the big thing, too, it's like obviously they're not the biggest names. They are the only names that the Bears have at this point, though. But the thing is, we've been seeing in training camp, the Bears love to rotate guys in and out. Literally yesterday there was a rep where Fields had to work with Chris Fink, Isaiah Coulter, and Nasimba Webster. And if that's going to be what happens throughout the course of training camp, you're not getting the best looks. I don't care, even if it is just like a Dante Pettis, Velus Jones, those guys, they're above the three players I just mentioned. And that's where I think it could be concerning if it does last a little bit longer. You're not getting the best looks on these reps, and obviously training camp is huge to get the timing down and the chemistry down within the offense. But if you're having like guys like that rep in and out with the first team, yeah, Fields is not getting the best looks, and this is the time to really establish, the offense, and that's not going to be the case.
I mean, you could look at it, glass half full if you want to, and I tend to be a glass half full kind of guy. But just in this case, not so much. Like, you can look at this thing and say, well, there's a lot of competition, so there's a lot of depth. There isn't a lot of depth. There aren't a lot of answers, right?
Yeah,
I don't know that they like to rotate guys in, or they just don't have 3 or 4 solid guys that they're sure about. You know what I mean? And so it 6 and 1 half dozen the other maybe, but it's like I think that they have issues of not having true top end guys, and so everybody from 2 through 8 are close, and I don't know if that's an ideal position to be in right now.
Well, you're hoping that somebody's going to separate themselves, but the problem is
those guys are going down.
Yeah, you got people going down, and also this isn't college football where you got a bunch of young kids that are transitioning to college for the first time. You're like, okay, who's going to develop? Almost everybody in this deal, except for Velus Jones, who happens to be one of the oldest rookies in the league, by the way, is somebody who's already failed somewhere else.
Right.
Or not had a ton of success somewhere else.
Right.
So it doesn't quite give you the level of optimism that you'd be looking for, that like, oh, somebody's just going to take off. Like you might have at some other positions with some truly young guys that are still on rookie contracts. I think that's kind of what we're sorting through.
And I've heard some optimism about this group from some people, and I get it if you want to be optimistic about it, but there's no one alive who can say that they've seen these guys produce at a high level in the National Football League. Nobody's seen it. Not NQ, not EQ, not Byron. Nope, nobody's seen it. We're hopeful. I'm hopeful, right? I hope that these guys can emerge as playmakers and contributors and difference makers on Sundays, but nobody's ever seen them do it. And, until then, it's just a hope.
It's just hope. And, you're working obviously with, you're hoping like guys like Equanimous St. Brown, who I think has been trending in an upward direction.
Sure.
Because going into training camp didn't have the highest expectations for him, obviously knowing Luke Getsy, but those guys are going to have to step up until at least some of these numbers come back. We don't know when that's going to be. Hopefully I think Velus Jones Jr. will be back sooner than some of the other guys because he's day-to-day, like Eberflus was saying, but that's all. Again, you can only hope that these guys gradually come back and sooner rather than later, so if Justin Fields can have just numbers, bodies to throw to at this point.
All right, so we usually start every post-practice show with the best and worst that we see each day. I'll ask both you guys this then, what was the best thing you guys saw over the weekend?
Over the weekend.
And don't say Nathan Peterman's deep ball that the Bears were highlighting on their Twitter account.
You didn't like that take from the Bears or Biggs either? Biggsy was like, yo, these are good.
I saw that. But okay, all right. I'm just saying, I don't know if it's a good thing if the highlights the team's putting out on their own Twitter account every day is Nathan Peterman.
Yeah, that's no good.
Like, shouldn't that be loaded with Justin Fields every day?
Should.
I guess if I had to say, the best thing I saw over the past couple of days would be, Tevin Jenkins in pads, right? And I don't know where that's going to go. I'm on record. I don't know that he's going to be on this team come September 11th. But it has to be at least a step in the right direction that we saw him. We hadn't seen him in a week and a half at all anywhere, right? And so just to see him around the team with pads on and cleats on the field, that would have to be the best thing I saw. I know it's a low bar, but I guess that's the best thing I saw.
He was there. At least he was there. He does exist, Tevin Jenkins. I'll stick with the offensive line. I think it's Braxton Jones kind of holding his own at left tackle, being that at this point, you guys, it seems like it's his job to lose because he's been getting most of the reps with that first team offense. There was a rep yesterday in the Walter Payton Center where he went up against Robert Quinn. Robert Quinn made him look like a rookie, but for the most part, you haven't had too many moments like that.
Yeah.
And I think that's encouraging from a guy that was a 5th-round draft pick and is now thrust into the starting lineup. So just Braxton Jones and his emergence to be a part of the Bears' starting offensive line.
No, that's legit. That's legit. I think he's handled himself well. We talked to him in the spring. He was talking about being surprised to be thrust into the first team, and now he's kind of settled into it, and he's got this competition going on with Riley Reef. But, to Nick's point, he's certainly holding his own, so I agree with that. Worst thing, I know we've already talked about it, but it would have to be those injuries. All those wide receivers just going down one after one, they're just dropping like flies. And that if this were – a second year, third year team or third year in the system, you know what I mean? That then maybe it wouldn't be such a big deal. But you've got all of these guys that are learning a new system with a quarterback they haven't played with, an OC that they aren't familiar with, and you need this time, right? You need this time more so than, say, the Rams. Like if all the Rams wide receivers went down right now, I wouldn't bat an eye about it. But this team already kind of lacking talent at that position, and then the guys that you're hoping to emerge all kind of go down one by one. That's the worst thing that's happened to the Bears this week.
You know what? Some of the situational periods on offense have just, and you can probably go from both days, honestly, but there just wasn't execution. The Bears started deep they were lined up on the 1 yard line, and Justin Fields' first pass should have been intercepted by Jaquan Brisker, trying to target Cole Kmet over the middle of the field. Then there's a run for 2 yards, and eventually they have to lead to a punt. And I know this is practice where you get to work out the kinks and things like that, but seeing some of the situational periods just end up in the results that we've all seen from Bears offenses, usually a 3-and-out, is a little discouraging, but I get it. It's training camp. He's missing, and like I told you, Chris Fink, Nasimra Webster, Isaiah Coulter were the wide receivers. It's tough to do things when those are the guys you're working with, but sometimes situationally – obviously, the offense still is a work in progress.
Yeah, I would say just kind of looking from the outside this weekend, I think the best thing was that Tevin Jenkins was back out there. I'll agree with you on that one, Herb, because I wasn't really expecting that. Like, the way things were I mean, that thing shifted dramatically last week where it was like, don't even know if he's in the building. He's working with trainers. Who's trainers? Don't know.
I don't know.
Some trainers. And then all of a sudden, Friday, Luke Getsy's like, oh, yeah, he's here. He's in all the meetings. I was like, why couldn't the head coach just say that? It would have made things so much easier. And then
I don't know why they do that.
I don't
know why they do that. And I asked Flus, I'm like, listen, you were clear about your injury policy and about how you're going to report injuries at this point in the year. I understand that, right? But you've also said, this guy has a quad or this guy has a hammy. Why not with Tevin? Like, why not just say that? And he's, it's because he was day to day, and we only do that if they're going to be week to week. Well, what's week to week if it's not 10 days? Like,
well, my fear is it's the back again.
Yeah,
because they probably don't want to say that. I mean, now it's good that he's back already, even if it's limited. We'll see if he does more at Soldier Field tomorrow. But that's the only thing I can think of in that scenario. But yeah, when you're asked repeatedly about Tevin Jenkins, and then in one of those answers, you go, oh, by the way, Thomas Graham has a hamstring. He's going to be out for weeks.
Like, come on.
Okay, so, well, you were asked about Tevin Jenkins, though. Like, well,
right.
What? Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, it was good to see him back because I wasn't necessarily expecting that. I still don't necessarily think that he's got an inside track to a starting job by any means, but
I don't think so.
Being on the field in pads is better than not being on the field at all, not really being seen at all. I mean, even Lucas Patrick, who we know is out for a while, and had his hand like basically casted up. We saw him.
He's watching.
He's over there. Roquan Smith's holding in. He's at practice every day out there. So it's just, I don't know. Weird things happen in training camp. We know that by now.
For sure.
I think in terms of the worst thing, yes, probably the injuries piling up. But I will say this. I'm not too concerned about it. Injuries always pile up as soon as the pads go on. There is that callousing that needs to take place, and I just think that this is part of it. You're always going to have 2 or 3 guys go down with injuries that might even wipe out the whole preseason.
Sure.
But what you want to avoid are those catastrophic injuries that
cost you half a season or a season.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and to specific players too that you just can't afford to lose. And believe it or not, there are 3 or 4 players on this team that are in that category of guys that, even though the expectations aren't super high, the whole season changes if Fields gets hurt or Mooney gets hurt or Roquan Smith gets hurt.
Yeah.
Which is fine that he's not practicing in my mind because it's like, okay.
With those injuries.
Can't get hurt that way.
Yeah, no, he's one of the guys that him being out doesn't really matter, right? As long as he's not, if it goes into the season, different story. But him, Quinn, like, I don't need to see Quinn take a rep. Not at practice, not in the preseason. I don't care. He's gonna show up. He's gonna bend the corner and sack people. That's just kind of what he does. And so, a couple guys I'm not worried about, but I'm with you on that in terms of those injuries.
Just real quick, I seen the comments. They said for the worst thing was a Tevin Jenkins press conference. It just looked like a man that was just defeated, and because he's usually lively, like he's pretty, energetic. I would say, and like that one, it's a tough situation to be in. But yeah, I had that same takeaway after, Tevin Jenkins press conference that it was kind of tough to watch.
Yeah. He's being tested right now.
Yeah,
and it seems like the team wants it that way. So we'll see if he pulls through.
It seems like what they wanted from the spring when they put the 5th round rookie in front of him. Mm-hmm. And I assume that they wanted, a more positive or light a fire under you kind of response. And that doesn't seem to be the way he received it. He seems to have received it as like,
like, damn, why are you doing this to
right.
me?
He seems to be dejected. You hear him talking about, I'm always having these conversations with my fiance, and she makes me feel better about talking. And shout out to his fiance for being an awesome life partner. But it gives you some insight to where he is mentally, right? That he's, constantly needing to be reassured or something to feel better. And it's not good. And somebody asked him specifically, how he's handling these things, and he was like, it's fine. I mean, it's life, and life is hard. Mm-hmm. So this is hard. Got it? Like, you know what I mean? And it's not an ideal position for him or anybody else. And I go back to Gundy, his college coach, talking about where he is mentally and emotionally, and I just don't think that he's got that kind of makeup to deal with that kind of pressure. I think they're going to have to deal with him a little bit differently. He needs more positive reassurance than kind of negative motivation.
Yeah, what you're referencing was Mike Gundy talking about right after they drafted him about how it took him a little bit to figure out like, oh shit, yeah, you're actually like a really big, good football player. Like you could actually do some like mean things to people out there on the football field, and it took him a while to figure that out. And then all of a sudden things started to take off, but then what happens when adversity strikes again? And then he deals with that back injury at the end of his college career, goes off to the NFL, and what's he got? 2 practices basically now? 3? Are we up to 3?
3 total.
3 total practices
2 years.
now in training camp?
Yeah.
Training camp practices, so that's tough. All right, got a lot more coming your way. Just want to let you know that the best way to support CHGO is to download the PointsBet app. Use code CHGO when you sign up, and if you do that right now, you'll get 2 risk-free bets up to $2,000. And that's not it, because if you make a $50 or more first-time deposit, you will receive a free CHGO membership, which unlocks all of our web content. You'll even get a free shirt of your choice from the CHGO locker. That's $2,000 in free bets, a free CHGO membership, and a free T-shirt from the CHGO locker, all for making a $50 or more first-time deposit at PointsBet. Any questions, email pointsbet@allchgo.com, and we will help you out. Your home for live in-play betting just got even better. If you happen to see an edge in the game you're watching, if your favorite team is primed for a comeback, don't just watch the game. Bet along with it live. Follow along with your bets the moment they hit and stay in the live action all game long. Download the PointsBet app right now. Use promo code CHGO. What are you waiting for? It is time to elevate your live betting game. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER for crisis counseling and referral services.
And real quickly, I see Brandon Johnson. The best thing I seen was CHGO and Hoge and Johns live at the same time. Adam, how can you be in 2 places at once? What's going on here?
That's how I've
Superman
officially cloned myself. It makes life a lot easier. I can now do 2 podcasts at the same exact time.
That's awesome. We all got to aspire to be like Adam there. But I have to tell you about our next partnership, which you should all definitely know about, Athletic Greens. With 1 scoop of Athletic Greens, you are absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help start your day off right. This mixture of ingredients helps your immune system, gives you energy, and improves your focus, and that's why I take my Athletic Greens, and, everyone should really do that. Herb, it's a really good product there. What's awesome about it is that it costs less than a cup of coffee a day. Also, it helps support better sleep quality and recovery, which we all definitely need. And there's no need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. You just take your Athletic Greens, you're good to go. That's all you need to start your day. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/CHGO Bears. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/CHGO Bears to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutrition insurance.
All right. Going to keep it rolling here. Herb Howard in studio with us today. Awesome to be back in our West Loop studio. We got Soldier Field practice tomorrow. We'll be zooming right back over here for our post-practice show right after that tomorrow at Soldier Field. I don't know why the Bears don't do this practice like
on the weekend at night where
on the
everyone
weekend
can
at
go.
night. Maybe it's because they don't own their own stadium. They used to do that. I mean, it used to be on a Saturday night, but it would always be during Lala. It would be a nightmare. Because I don't know if you guys saw, like, the Eagles had 30,000 fans at their practice.
Wow.
The Bills can, like, fill their stadium. And I was in Wisconsin over the weekend. The Packers had a practice on TV.
Wow.
So,
You're not even allowed to tweet about practice half the time.
no, we can't. No.
Very true.
No.
But it's a Tuesday at 10:45.
You know what I've noticed this year? Pretty much every year, but definitely this year even more so. Packers, their reporters will just straight up tweet out the depth chart, like from practice. That's always been a thing. They're not as secretive about injuries. Like the first day of camp, Brian Gutekunst was like, "Yep, Bakhtiari had a knee surgery. Yeah, our all-pro left tackle, no big deal. You know, he'll be back. We'll move on to the next guy. We're good." You know what I mean? Like, and
Who's Tevin Jenkins? Yeah. What do you mean?
yeah. What injury did Dakota Dozier have? We can't tell you that.
Competitive advantage.
He's
you
out
guys.
for the year. What does that matter?
Competitive advantage.
It's gotta stay on
Well,
top.
one of those teams is winning the North every year. The other one's not. So
The other one's going to take it and never give it back.
that's right. Eventually. They'll get there. Herb, what have you learned about this team since camp started? Like, what stood out to you maybe the most?
It's a better football team than they were last year. And not on paper. On paper, they would appear to be a better football team last year. But just watching them and comparing the practices, comparing the tempo, comparing the demeanor, this is a better football team. They're going to compete more. They're not going to beat themselves as much with, undisciplined penalties and those types of things. I think this is a team who is going to play above maybe where their talent indicates they would. And I think that's a good thing for them. They're going to find themselves in games late in the fourth quarter. Whether or not they have the playmakers to be able to steal some of those games, we'll have to see about that. But just watching how they go about their business, I think this is a very professional team. I think it is a disciplined team that's going to compete through the echo of the whistle. And I give Coach Eberflus, all the kudos and credit for establishing that kind of culture so soon.
I like that, Herb. I'll take a bigger picture, but more so on the offense. I think there is actually an offense with the scheme that Luke Getsy's trying to run here. It makes sense how he's trying to get guys open, how he's going to use Justin Fields and cared to, his ability to extend plays outside the pocket, utilize the tight ends like Cole Kmet. Like, I think even though we've seen guys in and out of the lineup, the offense, at this early stage of it, it looks like it makes sense. And so I think that's encouraging despite who's, on a given play. The scheme's not going to be the one thing that holds maybe the offense back right now. It might just be the lack of talent at this point. But having a scheme that makes sense, and I know we've talked about this a lot, Adam, like that's what we're kind of seeing through the first 10 practices of training camp.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of reasons actually that you can point to of why this team could actually end up winning more games than they won last year. Yeah. Even with the so-called lack of talent. To me, like, the lack of talent isn't so much about what they lost. It's maybe what they refuse to go out and replace them with in the offseason. And it actually starts to eat at me when I keep hearing the same people that bashed the players that were on the field last year complain about the players that are no longer here anymore. Because, like, those were the same players you didn't – like, you thought Allen Robinson was dogging it last year. Okay, well, now he's on the team. So, really, what's the difference? Like, you know what I mean? Like, and I actually think that's one example where you do probably miss Allen Robinson a little bit, and I think Allen Robinson would have been better off in this offense with a little bit better direction than what they're getting now. But, like – come on. I mean, some of these other guys, Bilal Nichols is a solid player, but, like, they're not missing Bilal Nichols right now.
No.
You know what I mean?
Eddie Goldman, Akeem Hicks, all those guys. I mean, those are Eddie Goldman goes and retires. Akeem Hicks has got an injury right now, and he's missed, 20 games? He's missed 20 games over the past 3 years, something like that. And so, I mean, it's not the departure of those guys. It's the lack of replacing them.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But where I'm going with that, where I think it connects to what you guys were saying, is, to me, I feel like you have to, if you're coming in and you're rebooting this thing, if you're Ryan Poles, if you're Matt Eberflus, like, there's 2 big picture things that are most important this year. Okay, one of them's obviously the quarterback, and maybe that's the only area where we probably all feel, fans included, that I don't know, maybe get him one more weapon or something that, like, it shouldn't look this dire on the offensive line and a wide receiver unit. But at the same time, I think they're testing them. Like, raise the players around you to a different level, to your level. And I think they're banking on the scheme being a big part of that. But the other big thing that they got to establish, beyond just making sure Justin Fields gets better, is the foundation, right? The identity of the program, which was lacking the last 4 years. They could never figure it out, what that identity was. The defense had it early on, and then they kind of lost it once Fangio left, and then the offense never found it at any point.
No.
I mean, if anything, I think Chris Tabor developed a little something on special teams, but now he's gone.
Agreed.
So, you know, to me, it's all about, and that's why I think they're training. These training camp practices have been so hard. Like, they're kind of weeding out who can handle it, who can't, and set your expectations, because this is what it's going to be like with the Chicago Bears going forward. And they might back off. They might have to. Like, Lovie Smith backed off after his first year because they actually had too many injuries. But they still set that foundation. They set their identity that stayed true, you know, for basically a decade.
Yeah, no doubt. Another thing that I kind of learned since the start of training camp, kind of micro-focusing this part here, but we didn't see much of Alquan Muhammad in OTAs. He was still dealing with an injury. But since training camp has started, Alquan Muhammad's a thing.
He is.
Like, I know he's going up not against the best tackles. We have to put that out there.
Sure.
But consistently getting in the backfield. I've seen him draw holding calls, be in the right placement on run plays. You know, with him and Quinn and obviously Travis Gibson, like, I think there is something to this defensive end group and what they could potentially do to opposing quarterbacks. But seeing him kind of flash consistently, that's going to be huge for this defensive line.
Yeah, he's what Flu said he is, right? He's a try hard, maximum effort guy who's going to get the most out of his abilities, and to do that every single snap, that's valuable, man. As an offensive tackle, you just, at some point, you just expect, you know, the guy's going to take a play off. And if you got a guy across from you that's never going to do that, eventually he might get you 2 or 3 times a game. And you know, those could be big plays for you. So I like what I've seen from him, too. And I think that group is good. I think they're going to be able to generate pass rush on the edge. I'm a little concerned about their ability to push the pocket from the middle, right, the interior. And I would say I like what I've seen from Justin Jones so far. I was very concerned about, you know, is he just a guy? Because in this defense, you don't need just a guy at that 3-tech. You need a difference maker. You need somebody who's penetrating and disrupting. And I've seen that from him. But then you kind of got to grade it on a curve. Like, is he that good, or is that because that's Sam Mustipher and that's a rookie and that's Jatari Carr? Like, you know what I mean? What's real is hard to determine right now. These preseason games are going to be a little bit telling in the trenches.
That's where I want to say I'm encouraged by Braxton Jones, because for the most part he's been going up against, you know, whether it's Robert Quinn or Alquan Muhammad, like, good players for the most part, getting thrown out there with the ones. Because I agree with you. Like, at sometimes I sort of wonder if we're hyping up the secondary a little bit too much because they're going up against all these wide receivers that you're like, okay, who are these guys? And like as good of a camp as I thought Kyler Gordon was having before he got apparently banged up or was dealing with the same thing that maybe he was dealing with in OTAs. You know, when he got isolated one-on-one and some one-on-one drills against Darnell Mooney was going by him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that'll get sorted out. That'll get sorted out here in the preseason, which leads me to my next question for you guys that I wanted to ask you is just, you know, I know the game's not till Saturday, but what do you want to see this week? Like, what's important that the Bears are able to get out of this week of camp with a number of practices, but also ending it with an actual game on Saturday?
For me, I would kind of going back to what I was saying earlier about the execution on offense. I want to see Fields in this offense look in sync. And look, it's the first preseason game. It's not realistic expectations, honestly, if you're asking for that. But I do want to see that come to fruition throughout this week of practice and on Saturday. It's like, okay, maybe the one or two series you got, it actually looks functional. Despite who's out there. Like, at least Fields is making the right throws. If the receiver drops the ball, whatever it may be, it wasn't on Fields. So just seeing the operation of things work, I think a lot of Bears fans would like to see that too. Like, okay, we're seeing Luke Getsy's offense. We're seeing people in open space, open grass, and they're executing plays. If they can do that throughout this week of training camp and leading up to Saturday, I think that's, you know, the arrow pointing up for them. Yeah.
For me, it's the kids. For me, you got to find out if these young guys are going to be able to step in and contribute immediately. I'm very, very high on Jaquan Brisker. I think he is going to be an absolute stud. Like, not just like a good Bears player. I think he's going to be a stud in this league. And I want to see him flash that early and often, right? And so I'm looking forward to seeing him. Obviously, with Kyler, the same thing. Just looking forward to seeing him get acclimated. But Braxton Jones, like, how is he going to hold up in a real game? And I would let those kids play. Like, I'm sure, like we talked about Quinn not needing to play or whatever, and I'm sure you'll pull Justin whenever you feel like you've seen enough. But let those kids play. Like, let Braxton Jones could play the whole half. I don't care. Like, let them play. And let's find out, you know, what you have in some of these younger guys. Let Dominique Robinson get 30 pass rushes. You know what I mean? Like, let these kids play. Let's find out if they are going to be able to contribute. So I'm most looking forward to the young guys getting out on the grass on Saturday and seeing what they got.
I'm also intrigued. I feel like the Bears are almost in a advantageous position where, now I say this with the understanding that we've already seen from his coaching staff that they're a little paranoid about competitive advantage. But, like, what do they have to lose? I'm not saying they're going to go out there and open up the playbook.
Sure.
But I don't think that they necessarily have to go out there and hide a ton of stuff. Like, I guess my point is, let Justin Fields run the offense. Don't hold him back because you're so worried about.
Oh, the 49ers are going to see this.
Yeah. I got news for you. The 49ers are practicing against us every day anyway.
All right.
You know,
right.
Exactly.
They run the system.
They run this
better
system.
than y'all.
So yeah.
They know how it looks.
Yeah. So you don't waste these reps because you're so afraid to show what's really in your offense in front of the TV cameras. Let Justin Fields go out there. Let the offensive linemen go out there and actually run the system. Again, I'm not saying show all your cards by any means, but you don't have to hold back. And I'm sure it'll be heavily scripted, but make the most of these opportunities that you have, the limited reps in these 3 preseason games.
When's the last time y'all seen a new football play?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like when the last time somebody did something like, I've never even seen anybody do that on the football field before. Like, hiding what?
Well, hey, Sean Payton saw the Bears run that one play in the playoff game and do it poorly, and then he ran it the next week and scored a touchdown.
Copycat league.
You know, so.
No, it's
True.
a good point. Good point. Guys, before we get to the last segment of the show, I just got to tell you again about PointsBet. If you enjoy CHGO, one way to help us to continue to grow is to download the PointsBet app and use code CHGO when you sign up. Not only are you going to get 2 risk-free bets up to $2,000, but if you make a $50 or more first-time deposit, you'll receive a free CHGO membership, which unlocks all of our web content, and you'll get a free shirt of your choice from the CHGO locker. If you have any questions, email pointsbet@allchgo.com. We'll help you out. And in case you missed it, online sign-up is available in Illinois. You can actually download the PointsBet app right now and register your account from start to finish, all from your phone. So what are you waiting for? Once the game starts, don't just bet. Live your bet life with PointsBet. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700.
Some of our commenters pointing out that the Philly special came off of a Bears play, which is true. Matt Barkley running it.
To, was it Cameron Meredith?
To Cameron Meredith in Week 17 against the Vikings. The year before, the Super Bowl was played in the same building. So the Bears are really good at drawing up plays that other teams run.
For successful teams, yep.
Well in playoff games. So, yeah, look, I just – it'll be an interesting week, I think, with both the health of the team but also what they're actually able to run. And to answer my own question that I asked you guys, like, I just want to see that offense look functional. You know, get in and out of the huddle, make it look like Fields is in control, and then make quick decisions too.
Yes.
You know, and that could be fool's gold because we actually saw Fields have a nice preseason debut last year. We saw Mitch Trubisky do it back in the day against the Broncos. He looked like you know, he was going to win Rookie of the Year in that game. It's tough because what they go up against is going to be very vanilla. But that doesn't mean it still can't look good. In fact, it means it probably should look good.
Right.
And it certainly beats the alternative of coming out of that game being like, oh, no. Like, what was that? Couldn't even figure out what they were trying to do. They got to get over that.
You know what I don't want to see? Was it the game against Buffalo where Justin took that huge hit where I think he just I forgot exactly what the play was, but it came off, the guy came off the edge and then just blew Justin up. Like, obviously, I think that was preseason last year, and now he's going into year 2. So those are inexcusable. So, and they probably won't happen now. I'm sure Justin's obviously learned about that. But, yeah, those types of plays can't happen. And like you said, just functional offense, that's all I'm kind of looking for on Saturday.
I think he's made that – he's gotten to that point in his development, right, where he understands pre-snap. I think he's gotten to the pre-snap point where he understands, okay, what is it that I'm trying to do and what do I see pre-snap? For me, the next step in his development is understanding and deciphering quickly what happens to him post-snap. Right? I thought they were doing this, then they dropped back into a zone, or I thought they were sitting back and they brought pressure. Where's my hot? Where are my answers to these questions? And right now, and understandably so, he's not there yet, right? He's slow on some of the things. You're seeing some of these throws come out a little bit late, or he's getting to his second and third read a little bit late. And understandable, second system in 2 years, I get it, but I would like to see him get to the point where he's finding the answers post-snap quicker than he is right now, and not having to always depend on his athleticism. It's great that he has it, and he's going to be able to use it, and he should, but I would like him to be able to find those answers quicker.
And I'm more than willing to give him a lot more time to figure all that out. Like, I am totally on board with it being a process. You know, I was actually listening to if you have any semblance of a social media account, you probably know Aaron Rodgers was on Part in My Take today, because that's been everywhere. And a lot of that interview, from what I've listened to so far, is pretty goofy, as you'd understand. But he got into some heavy football stuff from the part I listened to about, and some of it had to do with Brian Urlacher, actually. But the point Rodgers made was, you reach a different level as a quarterback when you can start playing defense. So you're so advanced on your side of the ball that you could start playing the defense's game. And then you know everything. And like, it kind of just put things into perspective for me right away, Tom. Because when you think about it like that, there is no possible way that Justin Fields could be there yet. And he shouldn't be there. Even like a Josh Allen probably is just starting to get to that point. Herbert, despite all the success he had last year, there's no way he could possibly.
I was watching Keenan Allen. I'm sorry. I was watching Keenan Allen talk to Brandon Marshall and Pac-Man, and he was saying the exact same thing about Herbert, and they were asking him, is he the guy that can take you all the way? He's like, man, he is. He was like, when it clicks for him, he's going to be a problem. And Brandon Marshall's like, what do you mean when it clicks? He's like, there's just another level, right? There's 100, 200. There's another level, and they're just not. They don't have enough experience to be at that level just yet, even though they're immensely talented.
And one of the reasons why Rodgers, throughout all these years, has consistently talked up Brian Urlacher as like the hardest opponent he's gone up against, and why he has so much respect for him is because Urlacher could play offense against him.
Yep.
And that's one of the reasons why Urlacher had so much success against Aaron Rodgers. People forget that there was actually some struggles there for the Packers for a minute against the Bears. Yeah. And then that really it was when
Did Lovey have a winning record?
Lovey went through a period where he went 7-3 against the Packers.
Okay.
Then that started to tail off towards the end.
Okay.
Especially after Aaron Rodgers took over. But at least there was a little bit more back and forth. And then once Lovey left, once Urlacher retired, we know how it's been really the last 10 years now.
Yeah.
But anyway, I just think that's hearing that, granted, top quarterback in the league, MVP, but you understand why he's that way, why Aaron Rodgers has that success when you think about it, like, oh, yeah, he's playing the defense for the defense, and that's why he keeps beating the defense. That's a long ways away. No one's expecting that to happen yet. But at a minimum, going back to what you were talking about, Herb, I think the fair expectation for Justin Fields right now is to just see it speed up a little bit.
Yep.
And it doesn't have to be this weekend against the Chiefs. It could be like week 8.
Yep.
And by the way, he was starting to get there last year.
He was.
Despite all that shit that got put in front of him that wasn't fair, despite the system and the lack of...
Nagy should still be in jail for what he did to that kid in Cleveland. That's premeditated murder.
And so if he is put in the right spot with these coaches in this system, I could see a world where that starts to click halfway through the season. But we got to be patient.
Yeah. That's the hope. Yeah, it's going to take time.
Lawrence, do we have some questions before we get out of here?
Yeah, there's a few I could give you guys today. Let's start with, let's see here. How about from Kevin O'Reilly? Scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you Kmet will have a breakout season?
These many, like 5. I'm right in the middle on him. I'm so tired of talking about Cole Kmet's potential. We know it. He had it. We saw the potential in college. He's a second-round pick. He's got the size and the athleticism. Are you good at football or not? Right? And I don't mean like regular human good. I mean football standards. I mean NFL standards good. Like, are you good at football or not? And I think that this season, it's put up or shut up with me. I'll give him to week 8 before I'll say, okay, I'm done with him or not, because this offense should allow him to thrive, right? They should be able to, if they can establish their outside zone and get play action off of it, he should be able to get some drags across the middle, some down the seam, mismatches on some linebackers. He should be able to produce in this offense. They're going to need him to. So I would say I'm right in the middle. I think he has all the potential to do it. Let's go do it, Cole, please.
Yeah. I think it depends how you define breakout season. If we're asking Cole Kmet to be a top 5 tight end in the league, I don't think that those were fair expectations really from the start when they drafted him. This wasn't a guy who was a top 10 pick. Right. That's why the comp for me, and I drilled this over and over again so we don't have to get into it was Kyle Rudolph was always the comp for me.
I would love that.
So if you're asking me, and I've gone through this before, if you actually look at Kyle Rudolph's year 2 numbers, Cole Kmet's are right there. So if you're asking me if that breakout, that trajectory can continue, I'm like an 8. I'm like a 9 on that. But if you're asking me, can he be one of the top 5 tight ends in the league and, all of a sudden have double-digit touchdowns this season, I don't know. I'm probably more like a 3. I don't think that that's necessarily a fair comparison. How about to think about it in fantasy football terms? Like, how confident are we that he could be a tight end 1? So essentially one of the top 12 tight ends in the league. A guy you want to start every week in fantasy.
It would help if he scored some touchdowns, you guys.
Right,
that helps you in your fantasy. And we know Cole Kmet's got 2 of those. And, in 2 years. So, yeah, I feel like he's more of a top 15 kind of guy. but confidence-wise, like around a 7.5. I think the scheme, going back to what Herb was saying, should do some good things for Cole Kmet.
All right, this one's strictly for Herb because we've answered this before, but Brian Schuster asked, do you guys think Eberflus's practice is different than Nagy's practice? So I've heard these two guys' thoughts, but what about you, Herb?
Yeah, I definitely think that there are different practices. That's kind of what I was referencing earlier when I say this looks like a better team, right? You're seeing them run from drill to drill. You're seeing them hustle, back in between plays. You're seeing them go through the echo of the whistle, and you got 11 guys running to the football, corner on the backside, no chance of making the play, is still busting his tail to get over there. Yep. And I think those are the types of things that are going to matter, and you can see those things out at practice. It's a different situation. We heard Cole Kmet say this week that was the hardest practice of his life. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so you can definitely tell that there's a different sense of urgency around what they're doing right now. And I think it's good. It's good to see they have a sense of direction. They know who they want to be and where they want to go, even if they aren't quite close to getting there. They know where they want to go. So yeah, the practices definitely look different.
All right, next up, this is from Jesse Colson, who says, where do the guys think additional wide receiver help would come from if the injury bug at the position continues?
Good question.
The waiver wire?
Yeah. I mean,
where else? Yeah.
Man,
there's not even.
Odell Beckham's still unsigned, right? But
yeah,
why would he sign with
injured.
the Bears?
Yeah, and he's still going through his ACL.
Yeah.
He's not going to be. He's going to have to start the season on PUP at least. Yeah. Right. You got guys like Will Fuller on the street.
Yeah, the guy that also hasn't been able to stay healthy.
Yeah.
Throughout his career, but he's a body.
Yeah,
he's a pass catcher.
There's a couple guys out on the street that you may consider, but I think it's going to have to come from cuts. Like after teams make their cuts, some teams are rich at wide receiver. You know what I mean? You look at the Rams; they've got 3 dudes who would probably be number ones over here. Like it's so you just kind of wait and see. Do these teams like the Rams or the Bengals maybe cut somebody who was maybe their 6th or 7th that can now come be your 3rd or 4th? You know what I mean? And maybe there's some options there.
Yeah, I think that's probably the most likely. I mean, you mentioned Will Fuller, still only 28. T.Y. Hilton's 32 now.
Eberflus connection, but I mean,
yeah,
that's a stretch even there.
Emmanuel Sanders is 35.
Yeah, Emmanuel Sanders.
God, they keep going up.
Alan Hearns is 30. Deshaun Jackson's 35.
DJ.
I mean, there's not a lot of. D.D. Westbrook, but he didn't really do much when he went over to the Vikings. So
they're in a tough situation, especially with the injuries that have already happened. Like none of those guys, especially given their age at this point, like moving the needle or doing much for you at this point.
Yeah, I think the low expectations kind of just allows them to just play it out and see, right? I think that Ryan Poles is kind of understanding that he's playing with house money right now, and there's not a whole lot of pressure on this particular season, which I think also weighs into the Roquan Smith contract negotiation situation, but that's a different thing. But I think that ideally they would like to see some of these younger guys on their own team kind of emerge, and so I think they would probably give them the first shot, and then if it doesn't work, then you got to find answers elsewhere.
All right, this brings up a perfect comment from M.O. What are the dates for cut days? Do we know that yet?
Yeah, this is a good question because it's changed a lot over the years. COVID had something to do with it too. There used to be phases to the cuts, and then they got kind of rid of all that, just made it one lump sum. But now they've gone back to what they did last year, which is kind of smaller cut dates, one after each preseason game. So next Tuesday will be the first one. So after the Bears' first preseason game this weekend, they'll have to make some tough decisions that cut down the roster from 90 to 85. So it's only 5 spots. Then they'll play another preseason game. Same thing the following week. They cut it down to 80. And then after that is the big cut down. You go all the way from 80 down to 53. That's when things get wild.
That's when guys are walking on eggshells around the facility. Like,
like is it me? Yeah. Let it be me.
But yeah, good question because that's changed a lot.
Let's do this one from Outlander. He says, any news on the captain situation? Do we have any idea about?
I don't think the captains are going to be figured out until season starts.
Yeah.
So
skip that.
I hope he doesn't do weekly though. I'll say that.
Like,
Don't do weekly captains. To
I
me,
think
that says you don't have captains.
Exactly. Yeah. I think it's worth bringing up again and a question to him probably along the lines here soon. But in terms of who those guys will be, won't be till get to the season.
All right, Brandon Campbell. He says, will the Bears have a set offensive line by Wednesday, Thursday for this Saturday?
No. We talked to Getsy this week, the OC, and he was like, yeah, we're not close to settling that situation on who those 5 guys are going to be. And I think he's being forthright and honest with that, right? I don't think he knows just yet, right? I think most of us, if healthy, would slot Lucas Patrick in there, and you can put Cody on the left side at guard. Borum's taking almost all of the right reps at right tackle, but nope.
Riley Reese in that
right now
situation too.
Yeah, so
There's
who knows?
I think though in terms of this week, we'll probably get a good idea tomorrow. I would expect them to kind of come out and practice, maybe a little bit less rotation, unless they plan on doing rotation in the game, which is always a possibility. But I would think, like, if Braxton Jones lining up as your first team left tackle tomorrow,
he's probably going to do so on Saturday.
You would think he's the first team left tackle starting the game on Saturday.
Yeah.
So I think we'll get some more clues here. Let me ask one more question to you, Herb, before we get out of here. Kind of a fun one in my mind. But who's the one player that maybe despite you knowing better, you just like to see him work out? I'll give you one example. Like, I keep You got one?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. You got one.
It's Daz Newsome.
Oh, yeah. I know the dad's thing for you. Yeah.
It's a bit of an inside joke on the beat. I've got a bet going with some of the other reporters that Daz is going to catch 40 balls this year. I don't expect that to actually happen. I'm going to lose that bet. But I was bored at practice one day, and there was nothing going on. And I was like, Daz is going to catch 40 balls. And people were like, I'll take that action. So we got that going on. But I really do like Daz, though. I think he does some things that could help you. I don't even know if he's going to make the roster this year, but all these injuries keep going down. I think he's a guy that may be able to take advantage of some opportunities. So I'll just stick with him, because I like him.
That reminds me of the bet I made with Ike, the photog from WGN, back in the day. Who is the South Carolina quarterback?
Nope.
Connor. What the hell was his name?
Shaw? No.
Connor Shaw.
Hey.
Yeah. They cut Connor Shaw like on a Wednesday in May or something, and Ike was just like besides himself. He's like, I guarantee you he's going to start a game, I go, Ike, I guarantee you he does not start a game for any other team this year.
Ever.
I think I said ever, but we had to put a date on the bet, so we said just this year. It was like by week 2 he retired from football. And I'll give Ike credit. He paid up the bet. The bet was a steak dinner at St. Elmo's at the Combine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's respect right there.
Let's go.
That's a bet I wish I would.
That's one of my favorite stories about bets within the beat.
That's awesome.
So, anyway, we got to get out of here. The CHGO White Sox show is coming up next. And so we got to get out of their way so that they can talk about bad baseball. Woohoo!
That is true.
Follow us on Twitter at Adam Hoge. He's at Herb Howard. 411 at Nicholas Moreano over there. Appreciate everybody chiming in today. Herb, the people love you.
Hey, it's always a good time being here. Thank y'all so much for having me. Y'all do it well. Y'all do it very, very well. So shout out to y'all and everything y'all got going on over here at CHGO.
Appreciate it. We will see you tomorrow at Soldier Field, and we will talk to everyone at 2 o'clock tomorrow. After that practice, we'll have the full recap from right here in our West Loop studio. We'll talk to you then.